Creative thinking skills, out of the box and onto the bottom line. This short video will show you a few ways to deliberately generate new ideas. Talk about how you start off with a set of goals and draw a large picture of the situation that surrounds your opportunity. 4 different ways to generate new ideas, and then importantly, how do you select these ideas and implement them in your organization. A great resource in helping you learn how to think this way is the Creativity Tools Memory Jogger, which you can get from GoalQPC. So let's get started. The first part of my process provides participants with a chance to document what's really happening and to question if the current picture is accurate. Get those assumptions out on the table. I'm also a real fan of doing this very visually, so this is up on a wall looking like this. The purpose of this first step, which I call big picture, is to help the team develop a very accurate picture of a starting point for the entire team, to build shared understanding. The first step is to help the team discover what it is they really want to accomplish. I call this an opportunity statement. Here, how can we open and run a profitable retail cookie shop at the Earhart terminal? You're likely not going to go with your first choice here, so work through this as a team until you end up with one that everybody can support, knowing that you can change this later if you can end up with a better version. The second part is to identify and document reasonable expectations regarding success as measured by. What is this idea going to accomplish? So in this case, $1 million of revenue for the first year. Good reputation is measured by comments and repeat customers. This second step, often called a scoreboard, can be just as detailed as you need it to be. In the third part of Big Picture, what you do is get the entire team together with everybody contributing to a drawing that describes the situation that really surrounds the opportunity. So as an example of the value of this kind of drawing, imagine meeting with your new home contractor. If you were trying to let this individual know what you wanted, you would certainly move to blueprints or drawings like this. In this video's simple example, selling cookies at an airport, we would develop a drawing that looks something like this, but quite a bit more detail, and to clarify, current reality. What's going on right now that surrounds this particular opportunity? This diagram can take many forms. Here, for example, is a flow chart, which again, the team would develop. These 3 components of the first step all work together. If I learn something in one step that helps me improve the others, of course I go back and do that. Having developed an effective opportunity statement, scoreboard, and diagram, the team is now ready to generate ideas. First observation is that you cannot will yourself a new idea. You can either wait for it to happen accidentally, or in the case of this video, learn how to create them. Learn how to provoke new ideas that did not exist before. Regarding reasonable expectations, when I start generating ideas, I really only expect about 5 or 10% of them to be useful when I'm all done. So as I go through these 4 methods, I would likely end up with about 100 different ideas, and only about 10 of them would be things I'd want to carry forward. Certainly one way to generate ideas is brainstorming. My process is as follows. Clarify the topic and the process, in this case the problem or opportunity. Secondly, generate ideas. I'm a real fan of using Post-its, and I like to give everybody 5 minutes all by themselves to come up with their own ideas. That often looks like this at a table. After 5 minutes of silent brainstorming, I like the team then to assemble up at a flip chart and going around the team, one person at a time, presenting each idea one at a time, and clarifying how the idea supports the scoreboard and all the information that they learned in that first step. A second form of brainstorming, called mind mapping, is quite a bit more interactive in the sense that I often will put 2 or 3 large flip charts up on the wall, create a diagram that starts off with the opportunity statement in the center, and then have everybody with their own markers simultaneously, silently begin to brainstorm ideas. When I get to the end of a circle, I ask, how can I do that? And I try to come up with at least 3 different ways. And I continue doing this out until probably about 10 minutes is done. Looks kind of like a freshman ride board. Very, very interactive. Lots and lots of ideas. Now I'd like to show you 2 examples of more unusual techniques for generating ideas. Word associations and imaginary brainstorming. The challenge here is once you've brainstormed with either normal brainstorming or mind mapping, for example, and you feel like you've come up with all the ideas that you can think of, How can you provoke your thinking to generate brand new ideas? Let's talk for a minute about how you might do this. David Perkins' book, Archimedes' Bathtub, has a wonderful description of how people come up with ideas accidentally. Long search, we need more meetings, little apparent progress, I'm getting so frustrated. Then a precipitating event occurs. Something happens which basically crosses paradigms and helps people look at things differently. Often there is a cognitive snap, the aha, when we get it. After which, this is what we should do, the transformation. Our challenge here is to learn to do this on purpose. How can we speed this process up? By deliberately imposing precipitating events so we deliberately get cognitive snaps and those following transformations. In word associations, you start off with an opportunity statement as before. In this case, how can we improve our sales with the XYZ product? In the second step, we randomly choose words. Randomly selecting a word, in this case, whale. For a period of time, we don't think about trying to improve sales, and all we do is list everything that comes to mind when we consider the word whale. So in this case, the team came up with oil, spears, Moby Dick, and ocean. The fourth and final step, and this is where I might move to Post-it so it's in the same format as the first two exercises, I ask, how do the associations help generate practical ideas? So for example, how does the word oil help me come up with improved sales? And there are two ideas right off the top. Now, in a short video, this may not convince you that this works, but it actually does. This fourth method, imaginary brainstorming, is somewhat similar to word associations in that it takes you to an unusual spot. From this unusual spot, you look at your problem and opportunity quite differently. In this case, what you're going to do is to put together your opportunity statement, but then substitute a very unusual subject, and in this case, aliens. And so in a sense, what I'm asking, alien, what would you do in this particular case? And I list down everything that he might actually do. And then I find that in fact, some of the things that this unusual subject might do around my problem actually might be useful to me. Once you've practiced with techniques like imaginary brainstorming and word association, you will likely discover that in fact they do work. They really do provide the precipitating events that generate the cognitive snaps. I can come up with new ideas on purpose. So then I begin to wonder, where else could I do this kind of work other than on paper? And so here are some examples for you. I find it most useful that as I enter these environments to be thinking about the problem that I'm trying to solve, the kinds of ideas that I'm looking for. And I will find very often things in these particular environments that actually stimulate either associations or ideas directly. So let me finish by just summarizing, selecting ideas, and then finally implementing them. I can use an impact ease diagram. This is a fundamental tool. I can all use a little more detail around values of ideas with a decision matrix. Here I'm using an interrelationship digraph. Or finally, a morphological box, which is explained in detail in the Creativity Tools Memory Jogger. Regardless of the decision-making tool that you choose to use, do work with the team very interactively, trying to help the team end up with an effective decision while you're also developing cooperative support. This will maximize the chance for success. So having made a decision, now it's up to the team to make sure that the idea is a success. Here again, how I think about a situation is very, very useful. In this chart, I'm noticing that in the first column, the person thinks that the situation is a mess. They're the victim, their job is to blame, and of course they end up with awful results. In exactly the same situation, someone who really has the right attitude about making an idea a success sees it as a competitive opportunity. They're the owner, they're the one to lead this, and you can imagine that they're going to end up with much better results. And so in summary, performance is driven by thinking. Thinking as a skill is flexible and improvable. Coming up with new ideas can be done accidentally or deliberately. Better thinking is guided by effective tools, and we've tried to show you a few in this video. Finally, creative thinking is not enough. Implementation is required to realize the benefits. And in all cases, how I choose to think affects my performance. Thank you for listening. To learn more about creative thinking skills and other topics, please take a look at my article series, mybiz.com, and up at the top, look for columns, and the title of the column is Good Thinking. Also visit my website, johncanfield.com. Or you may call 616-392-2634.